Energy is invisible until it disappears. When the lights go out, everything else follows. Transportation collapses, food supply breaks down, hospitals struggle, tourism fades, and daily life slows to a crawl. In Cuba, energy has never been just a technical matter. It has always been political, economic, and deeply tied to survival. This is not a story about ideology or moral judgment. It is a story about consequences. When the United States decided to apply maximum pressure on Venezuela, the shockwaves did not stop at Caracas. They crossed the Caribbean and landed squarely in Havana, triggering one of the most severe energy disruptions Cuba had experienced in decades. For years, Cuba relied on a fragile but functional arrangement. Venezuelan oil arrived regularly under preferential terms, keeping Cuba's aging power plants operating. In exchange, Cuba provided medical services, technical expertise, and political support. The system was inefficient and heavily politicized, but it worked well enough to keep the country running. That arrangement began to collapse when the Trump administration imposed targeted sanctions on Venezuelan oil exports. These sanctions did not only affect Venezuela. They penalized shipping companies, insurers, and intermediaries involved in transporting oil to Cuba, making deliveries risky, expensive, and increasingly rare. The impact was immediate. Oil shipments dropped sharply, fuel reserves shrank, and power generation declined. Blackouts spread across the island. Public transportation slowed or stopped. Factories reduced output, hotels struggled to operate, and hospitals were forced to rely on emergency generators to maintain essential services. For many Cubans, the situation revived memories of the special period of the 1990s, when the collapse of the Soviet Union plunged the island into extreme scarcity. But this crisis unfolded in a different global context, shaped by new technologies, new alliances, and new constraints. For years, Cuban authorities spoke about renewable energy. Solar, wind, biomass, and hydro appeared in official plans and speeches, yet progress was slow. Oil, even unreliable oil, was easier. Infrastructure was built around it, and political alliances reinforced dependence until oil was no longer an option. As fuel imports collapsed, Cuba faced a stark choice: adapt or shut down. Renewable energy, once a distant aspiration, became an urgent necessity. Projects that had remained stalled for years were suddenly accelerated, driven not by environmental idealism, but by survival. Solar installations began appearing near urban centers. Wind projects gained attention in coastal regions. Rural microgrids became more relevant as centralized systems struggled. The transition was uneven, improvised, and constrained, but it was real. This was not a green revolution. It was an emergency response. Cuba's electrical grid was outdated and fragile. Access to capital was limited. Foreign technology was required. Bureaucratic inertia slowed implementation. Every step forward came with friction and delay. Still, the opportunity was undeniable. For the first time in decades, Cuba was being pushed toward partial energy independence. Not by choice, but by force. The crisis exposed how vulnerable the old system was and how dangerous total reliance on a single external supplier could be. As Havana searched for alternatives, its geopolitical relationships shifted. With Venezuelan oil no longer reliable, Cuba turned to other partners. China emerged as a key supplier of solar technology, equipment, and financing, filling gaps left by Western disengagement. At the same time, Russia renewed its interest in Cuba's energy sector. Power generation, infrastructure rehabilitation, and fuel logistics became areas of renewed cooperation. These relationships carried strategic weight far beyond energy production alone. From Washington's perspective, the outcome was paradoxical. Sanctions designed to isolate, Cuba ended up reinforcing its ties with U.S. rivals. This reflects a recurring lesson in geopolitics. Pressure rarely creates empty spaces. When one actor withdraws, another steps in. While governments adjusted strategies, the human cost of the energy crisis became increasingly visible. Fuel shortages reshaped daily life across the island. Transportation grew unreliable. Refrigeration of food and medicine became difficult. Water pumping systems slowed. Agriculture suffered as irrigation and processing became harder to sustain. Tourism, one of Cuba's main sources of foreign currency, faced persistent disruptions. Hotels struggled with electricity cuts, and visitor confidence declined with each blackout. Every outage translated into economic losses that compounded an already fragile situation. Productivity declined, investment hesitated, and growth slowed. Energy scarcity became a drag on nearly every sector of the economy. Despite these hardships, Cuban society adapted. Individuals installed small solar panels to power homes. Communities shared resources. Local solutions replaced centralized systems wherever possible. Resilience became a daily practice rather than an abstract concept. But resilience has limits. Improvisation cannot replace stable infrastructure. Energy shortages continued to constrain productivity, deepen inequality, and exhaust coping mechanisms developed under pressure. This raises an uncomfortable question. What exactly is the energy legacy of the Trump administration in Cuba? The sanctions did not collapse the Cuban government. They did not trigger political reform. They did not fully isolate the island from the global system. What they did accomplish was a structural shift. Cuba's energy trajectory changed permanently. Returning to total oil dependence now appears unlikely, not because renewable energy has fully replaced fossil fuels, but because the risks of dependence are now undeniable. Cuba's future energy system will remain mixed. Fossil fuels will continue to play a role. Renewable energy will expand slowly and unevenly. Infrastructure limitations will persist, but the direction has changed, and reversing it would be costly. For future U.S. administrations, this presents a strategic dilemma. Continue pressure, knowing it pushes Cuba closer to China and Russia, or reconsider engagement, recognizing that energy policy is also foreign policy, diplomacy, and influence. Energy is not neutral. It shapes alliances, determines leverage, and defines vulnerability. In Cuba's case, energy has always been a tool of survival, and Trump-era sanctions transformed it into a catalyst for unintended change. This is not a story of victory or defeat. It is a story of adaptation under pressure, of systems forced to evolve, not because they wanted to, but because they had no alternative. The Cuban energy crisis reveals how modern sanctions operate. Their effects are rarely contained. They spread across borders, sectors, and populations, reshaping incentives in unpredictable ways. In this case, sanctions designed to punish ended up accelerating diversification. They exposed fragility while opening limited paths toward resilience, creating hardship while forcing innovation. Cuba today remains energy constrained. Blackouts still occur, infrastructure remains weak, and the transition is incomplete. But the island is no longer the same energy system it was before. Trump's legacy in Cuba's energy sector is not found in policy documents or speeches. It is written into power grids, solar fields, alliances, and daily life. In geopolitics, the most lasting changes are often not the ones we plan. They are the ones we force. And Cuba is still living with the consequences.